Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whoever you are, wherever you are. This is Dr. Patrick Lockwood coming back to you live, and I hope that you've had a good week so far. It's been an interesting week. Lots of particular insanity here in the United States, and I hope to address some of it if I can. We'll see how successful I am. Yeah, been a lot of conflict this week, and the one really big issue, other than what in the world is going to happen on Game of Thrones, which I'm not invested in it at all, because I just don't understand the appeal to the show, is there's been a huge, to use Donald Trump's language, debate and just all sorts of madness about abortion here in the United States. So given that that's the topic du jour, and I saw just all sorts of fighting, just an egregious number of fights on Twitter and other places online this last week, I thought maybe I would take a stab at abortion, and maybe this will be helpful, maybe it won't be. Let's not forget all the other insanity about Donald Trump and 2020 election and all that good stuff. Lots of stupidity in the political world as always. I saw a great tweet, by the way. I'm having a lot of fun on Twitter in terms of just learning and talking with people, because I like to talk to people. There's new stuff to learn. I don't necessarily like people, but I like talking to people because I learn stuff. And I saw an interesting, funny, kind of apropos tweet from @RealYeyoza, Yeyoza, to James Lindsay from the Peter Boghossian, H.P. Luckrose, etc. bogus studies kerfluffle that happened a while ago that kind of got Peter in big trouble. That said, what did the tweet say? It said something to the effect of, the best strategy for anyone in the DNC, the Democratic Party, to win is just to shut up. And I couldn't agree more. I think there's just so much stupidity that's being said on all sides, on the right, on the left, everywhere. If only they just shut up and talked very plainly about issues as issues arose and didn't talk about the drama. Because right now, it's like, and I don't know if this was intentional, maybe this was a game that our president was playing, and maybe he's doing it very successfully, I don't know. But it seems like the world of politics here in the US, and probably in other places too, has become this weird reality TV show where everyone gets their 30-second or 1-minute little interview by themselves, and they comment on what's going on, and then they go back to then the screen pans back to everyone in the room arguing with each other and pulling each other's hair. It seems like U.S. politics is more like the Real Housewives of New Jersey than it is anything like, what you would have seen in ancient Rome or ancient Greece, where people actually just got up, gave a speech, debated each other, and then sat down. I don't know. We've come to this very weird place. Anyways, all that's to say is that it's still stupid. It's still not worth paying attention to, but because we like reality shows and we're kind of primitive creatures, we seem to pay a lot of attention to it. So I'll keep pitching, just try to stay out of it, but it's not a very popular opinion. Just stay out of politics. Just don't play. That's not a popular opinion. But let me talk about an even more unpopular opinion. So, and again, all comments are welcome about anything I've said or anything I will say. If anyone wants to debate and or chat and or critique, that's perfectly fine as well. I'm not invested in what I'm about to say in the sense that I think it's me or perfect or right. It's just an idea. So today I want to attempt to bring a little evolutionary psychology, game theory, etc. into the conversation about our United States conflict about abortion and politics. Things seem to get really nasty around Alabama and whatever happened there. I have no clue. But we just seem to keep engaging in behavior that makes us fight or even despise and hate each other online and in person, which is craziness. And maybe, I don't know if I'll succeed, maybe I can frame some of this insanity from a game theoretical perspective, or in terms that we can understand, and maybe it'll make it easier for us to negotiate this very unpleasant concept. And I'm going to post in the caption a link to an article by Nature that explains the basic game theoretical concepts I'm going to use here and give some examples that you can follow. Again, before I get into my argument about, the evolutionary psychology game theory perspective on abortion, there are two giant caveats I want to point out and just plant flags in the ground well before I get started. So caveat number one, I am not a professor of evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology. It is not my field of expertise. I simply really find these concepts fascinating and highly applicable to a lot of our modern day circumstances. And I'll do my best to accurately describe and implement the concepts, and also admit that I'm not well versed in the concepts. So this is part experimentation on my end. And please listen to it with that in mind. This is not me claiming expertise or anything of that nature. Secondarily, what I'm about to say might sound a little bit like eugenics, or might sound a little bit like, something creepy or Richard Spencer-esque, or something ethnostate-esque, or anything weird that seems like we're going to intentionally alter the gene pool, etc. And that's not my intention. My intention is just to be descriptive, and just explain why maybe people are engaging in abortion, and maybe why we should and or should not do so. And I might crash and burn here, and if I do, that's perfectly fine. So I hope those two caveats are clear. I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything close to that, and I'm not saying that there is a perfect and or ideal good or bad to this discussion here. I don't think it's possible to have a perfect world. I don't think we're built for a harmonious society. I said that in my book, The Fear Problem. Wherever the book went, it's here somewhere, isn't it? Well, it's back there on the shelf, bright yellow, The Fear Problem. Go get it on Amazon, etc. Go get it on my website, patricklockwoodhealing.com/books.html. Go get it. It's a good read. It'll explain why, if you're watching this and you already don't like what I'm saying, why you're having that stupid reaction. So, basic game theory concepts I want to use in this talk are as follows. So the first one is evolutionarily stable strategies. So this is just any strategy that all players in a game can use that work better than any alternative that comes about through sexual selection, etc. Even when the alternative strategy works equally as well as the original strategy, it still has to work better. So that's an evolutionarily stable strategy. And you can go check the link I'm going to put in the caption about what that really is in more detail. Then there's the concept of cooperation, which we all know is an important part of any animal species, humans, operating effectively. Then there's the differentiation between a pure strategy and a mixed strategy. So a pure strategy, according to what I know, what limited information I have, is a strategy used by an animal, a human, whatever, across all theoretical circumstances in a particular game. It's effective all the time. So, for instance, always fighting whenever there's any kind of threat. That's a pure strategy. Whereas a mixed strategy would be something like only fight if the animal's smaller than you, but don't fight if the animal's bigger than you. You should run in that case. So that's a mixed strategy. So those are the three concepts. And then the fourth concept is just a background concept that I want you to keep in the back of your mind while I'm talking. What's the difference between a simple environment or a simple game and a complex environment or a complex game? Those are the kind of the basic strategies and concepts that I think are worth keeping in mind as we talk about, abortion. So in trying to come up with some way of understanding why humans might engage in the intentional destruction of infants in the womb, etc., or during development or afterwards, the closest thing I could come to in the evolutionary psych literature and evolutionary biology literature was infanticide. And I'm going to skip over things like ritualistic infant sacrifice or ceremonial sacrificing of children because I don't think that's quite related to this particular topic. Maybe someone can find a metaphorical link. That's not really my cup of tea. So I'm leaving those two particular concepts out. But infanticide, just the killing of either a half-developed or fully developed infant, less than 1 year old, basically, happens in many species, sometimes by females and sometimes by males. And some examples of creatures that commonly engage in this behavior are, regular house cats, lions, all sorts of birds, the Alpine marmot, squirrels, and zebras, just to name a few. And primates do this too. And in some species, up to 18%, especially of birds, up to 18% of all infant deaths or hatchling deaths is attributed to infanticide, not to natural causes or etc. So that's kind of the upper limit, I think. And there's a great book by Hausfater and Hrdy that kind of, and I'll link to it in the caption, that differentiated the different types of infanticide that happen all over the world. So if you want to kind of become more knowledgeable about infanticide across animal species and humans, you can get their book, which I'll put in the references here. And they basically broke down infanticide based upon two concepts, whether you are related or not, so kin versus non-kin infanticide, and then the particular reason for the killing. So there are 4 theoretical broad categories of reasons why animals and primates engage in infanticide from what I've read. So the first one doesn't seem very applicable to humans, which is cannibalism. Sometimes animals will literally eat their young, and sometimes that's on multiple levels, just because they need resources. A second reason is for conserving resources. So the animal will realize that they have too many eggs and they will randomly kill, or I'm not so sure how random it is, but maybe the bird will randomly kill one of the 3 eggs because the bird knows that there's not as much food in the territory as is needed to keep all the young alive. So conserving resources is the second common reason why young are killed. The third common reason, from what I can tell, is what's called parental manipulation. So basically this is, I'm not quite ready yet to take care of the young that is being born, which is kind of like a delay of parenting so that, you can be more fit later. And then the fourth reason is basically sexual selection. So, and across a number of species, this happens where a parent or an outside male will kill a female, or an outside male, intruding male, will kill the young of the female so that you will look like more a viable mate and be able to copulate. So there's a great article I found online where Hrdy, H-R-D-Y, went to India and studied a primate species called the langur, L-A-N-G-U-R. And what Hrdy found was that the langurs would go out and intentionally kill infants with some consistency when they were below a certain age so that they could mate with the female. So those are the 4 reasons: cannibalism, conserving resources, parental manipulation, I'm not ready, and then sexual selection, being able to reproduce and copulate, because I guess it's not sexy when you have a kid already, that kind of thing. Now, obviously, those are slight oversimplifications. If you want to read kind of the full ins and outs of it, please get Hausfater and Hrdy's book. I think it's just simply called Infanticide. It's a dark blue book. It's a great book. Mine's on the way. I read a lot of it online already. So yeah, you'll get a better understanding of why. And I hope to use those 2 concepts, kin, non-kin, and then the 4 reasons why, to explain human abortion later. So one article I read showed that through kind of a statistical modeling kind of game theory way, that more infanticide occurs in a species when there are more people reproducing successfully compared to the groups with less successful reproduction. So it might be a population control thing. However, according to this article, at least, which will be posted in the caption, the reference will be, this doesn't just happen for population control efforts. More specifically, in more successfully reproducing species, more infanticide will happen when subordinates or lesser females, according to this article, talking about animals, not humans, when subordinates need to be more free to reproduce more effectively. So it's about not necessarily keeping the population down, but it's more about allowing direct control of when reproduction is advantageous for people who need to find better mates, etc., who are struggling genetically. That's one article. So basically, looking at what I've found here so far, we could extrapolate to humans, extend these concepts to humans, and maybe think about a number of reasons why modern day humans are very focused on abortion, other than the typical feminist and socio-political reasons that everyone is currently screaming about right now on Twitter. We might be able to look at, human abortion or human infanticide, not to judge or anything of that nature, just a technical comparison. We might be able to look at it from the population level dynamic perspective, based upon the ideas I just referenced. So, first and foremost, given how prosperous certain countries are and how much the population is growing, there might be a necessity for more abortion from the perspective of, reason number 2 and reason number 3. So from the perspective of conserving resources or parental manipulation, it might be wise when we have a densely populated group, or if you feel unprepared, to engage in this behavior more. So according to the CDC, for instance, just to add some numbers to the idea, which I'll link in the caption, I'll put the links there. There were something like 640,000 abortions in 2015. That's what they said. And there are approximately 188 abortions for every 1,000 births in the US. Also, the frequency of abortions decreased from 2014 to 2015. And more recent data shows that there was an increase in 2016, but a decrease from 2017 onward. So maybe there might be a change in the number of abortions that occur in humans, here in the US in particular, that kind of shifts. This change might happen in conjunction with different economic, social, and health conditions, So theoretically, maybe the shift upward from 2015 to 2016, but then downward 2017 might have something to do with the election, or changes in the economy, or changes in, the relative level of terror threat, or any number of things like that. Relative level of homelessness, relative level of, bankruptcy, all these kinds of things. So we've seen that, it's a fairly common thing that happens, but it shifts based upon the time and the circumstances. And that makes me pose like 3 questions that I literally have no answers to, but I would love some brilliant researchers in either the social psych or evolutionary psych or medical health, whatever, worlds to research. I don't have the access to do that where I'm at right now in my university, but if I could, I would. But whoever's listening, if anyone listens and anyone ever says, these questions might be useful to answer, here are 3 questions I think might be useful to answer to kind of figure out the evolutionary psych perspective on abortion in the United States, at least. Number 1, do the abortion rates in the US vary by the ratio of available and viable males versus females? That's a simpler one. Like, do the number of abortion rates vary based upon the number of suitors, etc.? Number 2, do the abortion rates vary reliably with shifts in economic or political power, right? Does the stock market crash and abortions go down or go up? It'd be good to know that kind of stuff. If everyone's super afraid of Donald Trump, did the number of abortions go up? Right? I know that sounds kind of like a ridiculous hypothesis, but it's entirely possible. So I don't know. Be good to answer that question. And then the third hypothesis that I think is worth exploring, which has a little bit of data, but not a lot, is to what extent do women or men advocate for abortion based upon kind of the three prototypical strategies that animals engage in infanticide, whether it's conserving resources, parental manipulation, or maintaining sexual selection viability. I'm going to exclude cannibalism because that's pretty much not a thing in most Western countries anymore. So I don't think it's worth discussing or exploring. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know how many people eat infants or fetuses, with the exception of Christopher Reeves and that one South Park episode where he was trying to get stem cells, because I'm super mature. But yeah, I would love to know to what extent both men and women advocate for abortion based upon those three reasons that animals engage in infanticide. And I'm going to link from one study that was, I think, in 2017, that was completed across the globe, 14 different nations. And the authors found that the two most common reasons that people engaged in abortion were socioeconomic concerns, so that would be conserving resources, and then the desire to limit childbearing, which would be parental manipulation. Now, I don't know if that's replicable, but it'd be good to know if it were. But I think we don't have a clear enough answer about question number 3. So my 3 questions, again, that I think should be answered by anthropologists, evolutionary psychologists, social psychologists, whoever is out there interested in researching this after I ramble on about it, is number 1, do the abortion rates in the U.S. vary by the ratio of available men, males to females, etc., or viable males to females? Number 2, do abortion rates vary with reliable shifts in economic or socio-political powers, stock market crashes, etc.? And number 3, to what extent do women and or men, or both, advocate for abortion based upon the 3 prototypical strategies I discussed earlier from animals committing infanticide? It'd be good to know answers to those questions, because I don't have any, but I think if we get more answers to those questions, we might be able to have a better conversation about, like Alabama, I think, placed a limit on the type of abortions that were, available or legal, that kind of thing. And I think I saw this tweet from Michael Shermer that said something to the effect of there are basically 2 options: pro-life, pro-choice. And he said there's a third option where maybe you don't like the concept of abortion, but you want people to have the freedom to make the choice if they need to, right? And I think that's a fairly rational way of looking at it. It's not my particular position, but it's a rational way of looking at it, which, if we answer those 3 questions, those 3 research questions I just labeled or gave out here, maybe we can figure out if there are reasonable limits. However, this kind of gets messy because then we're left with, from the evolutionary psych perspective and the game theory perspective, to what degree is abortion the most evolutionarily stable strategy? That's the question that I'm not sure I can answer at this point. And maybe we can make some sense as to why many engage in abortion, despite the fact that no one likes talking about it. For me, it's like this, many women feel stigmatized about the concept of abortion. Some have to engage in it, because of terrible circumstances like rape. Some make a choice and still feel bad about it. And many people feel bad discussing abortion just because we have a very tenuous relationship with the concept of death and dying. No one likes talking about the concept of, a potentially living or living thing not living anymore, So I think there's a variety of emotional reasons that we all get caught up in this abortion debate. And, we can quibble over first trimester versus second trimester, etc. And I'm not here to say that abortion is good or bad, I'm simply saying that, this isn't one of those topics that anyone's going to leave the room feeling good about or smiling about. And I think if we can have a more micro and then macro perspective on it, we can have a better discussion of, is there utility to first trimester versus second trimester, etc. We can have a better discussion about the morality of the concept if we understand kind of the degree to which this might be an evolutionarily stable strategy or not. I don't know. This is my pitch, though. So breaking it down using the concepts of pure versus mixed strategies, which I mentioned earlier, abortion is clearly not a pure strategy. It's not like every time a female feels unprepared to be a parent that she has an abortion. That doesn't happen at all. In fact, I've worked with so many parents, so many women who did not feel ready to be parents, but they did it anyways because they felt like they had an obligation to raise the child and not get an abortion. Don't know if that's good or bad. I've just seen it a lot. So it's clear that abortion is not a pure strategy with regard to reasons number 2 or 3 for why animals commit infanticide. And, in terms of the mixed strategy part of it, because we don't live in a simple environment. A lot of the game theory ideas are studied in more simplistic, straight, like Prisoner's Dilemma is a very simple, non-complex environment. Whereas, abortion and humans in the United States, there are so many layers of complexity that I cannot imagine in terms of a mixed strategy. I cannot imagine how it can be simple to analyze across all game theoretical circumstances if this is the best choice or not, in terms of best for the individual, best for the collective small cultural group that the individual is a part of, best for the greater society in terms of, live birth rate and all that good stuff. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But it's definitely a mixed strategy, not a pure strategy. And I'm also not, in terms of like the game theory concept of cooperation, I'm not sure how cooperative a strategy it is. I'm really honestly ignorant about the degree to which partners of females involved in getting an abortion are, or how often the male is the one who's encouraging people to engage in abortion. I did find one study, just so I could kind of have something to lean on here, that showed that having a male partner involved in the process before, during, and after an abortion helped women adjust emotionally, psychologically, but there was really no data that I could find, maybe due to lack of time, I don't know, but there was no good data I could find on the degree to which abortions were coerced or forced by the partner, or that the partner recommended or wanted the abortion, but the female did not. I don't know what that data looks like. It would be really good to have that data, I think. So if anyone's out there researching this concept, please check that out, because I think that will help all the kind of game theory researchers figure out, to what extent does this matter? Because it's very clear when you go observe like a langur, male monkey, etc., go in and kill the infant so he can copulate with the female. It's very clear the extent to which that happens. But in humans, I think because this is a very taboo topic, we haven't really explored that. That's my intuition about that. And I think we need to. My first intuition about the utility of abortion is that as a mixed strategy, like many mixed strategies in the evolutionary psych literature, I would think we would see short-term emotional consequences and long-term benefit for the individual. But for society or smaller subgroups, I have no clue. And the one obvious question for me right now is the one I haven't answered yet, which is abortion an evolutionarily stable strategy? And I'm sure anyone who's watching can throw their hat in the ring, and I don't know. My answer is I don't know. The fact that it is, in the short term, very effective makes me think, yes, it's an evolutionarily stable strategy. Does it make it a morally good strategy? I don't know. I don't operate in morals. That's not really my work, so to speak. That's not my expertise. It's not what I do for a living. And I doubt that this behavior would have been conserved in non-human primates and humans if it weren't effective for controlling the population, getting rid of bad genes. Again, not trying to be a eugenicist or anything. I think we would have gotten rid of the concept of abortion a long time ago, given how long humans and hominids have been around. Long time ago. Infanticide would have disappeared if it weren't useful. So there's probably utility to it. And in the US, just a comparative thing that I found that might be interesting. Again, going back to the earlier stat, in some species, especially birds, 18% of infant mortality is due to infanticide. According to the CDC, something like 5.8 deaths per 1,000 were due to natural consequences like SIDS or birth defects or low birth weight, pregnancy complications, and injuries. So if you compare, and I'll put the link to that stat in the caption, if you compare the 188 abortions for every 1,000 live births, which is about 2 per 10, roughly, to 5.8 for 1,000, it seems like there's a disparity between the number of infants that die naturally, more so, or unintentionally, I guess you could say, versus the infants that die, or the not even infant in the womb, second trimester, third trimester, first trimester creatures. I don't know how you want to say it. I don't even know how to say it at this point. Zygotes, whatever, that are, terminated. There seems to be more abortions per live birth than there seem to be natural causes. And I wonder if the 188 to 1,000 matches up with the 18% infant mortality due to infanticide in animals. Don't know. So my confusion is basically this. I'm not sure that if birth control, condoms, etc., are more effective strategies, more evolutionarily stable strategies, comparatively speaking, at the population level of analysis in terms of evolutionary fitness, sexual selection, relative health, relative economic benefit, spreading of resources, all that stuff, than abortion. I don't know. I don't know if condoms or birth control or just abstinence, all those things, not sure. Couldn't tell you. Be good to know. So let's just say we take, the Ben Shapiro approach to abortion and basically stop the process altogether. Let's just say that with the exception of very rare cases, abortion is not completed anymore. In this theoretical, what would happen 1 year down the road, near term? And then what would happen 10 years down the road? I would assume we would see differences in the economy because of more children being born. If there are something like, what was the stat from I forget the name of the website. And I saw another website that said that kind of a higher figure than the CDC, something like 880,000 abortions happened in 2017. So close to 1 million infants close to 1 million zygotes, fetuses, I don't know, were terminated in 2017. So I wonder if all those were born, what would that do to the economy? What would that do to the number of intact families? Would more fathers stay with mothers, etc.? Would more divorces happen? Less divorces happen? What would that do for our resources? What would that do for housing? What would that do for jobs? What would that do for just the number of children being born in future generations? That's long term. So what are the 10 years consequences? So short term, long term. How would this be influenced by kind of the ever increasing intermixing of cultures that's happening in the United States? And what other variables would need to be taken in consideration? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because my understanding of the abortion data is that around the 80s, it was really kind of peaking. And then around the 90s, etc., and there's a graph for this on one of the websites I'm going to link, it started to kind of decrease with a little upturn in the mid to early 2000s, and now it's decreasing some more. That's my understanding of it. So it's happening less, comparatively speaking. But I don't know. I wonder what would happen. But there's a lot of questions to answer. There's also this thing called Hamilton's rule in evolutionary psych in terms of altruistic behavior, etc. But I don't think that applies to any of this. So I'm going to put that out there as a concept that might be worth looking into. I don't think altruism is a part of abortion. Don't know. But if any of you out there know more about it, please comment, etc., and let me know if I should have talked about it. Again, I'm neither pro-life or pro-choice. I'm out. I'm not going to render an opinion on something because it's none of my business. And I'm not trying to be a coward. It's just I have no clue. There are so many unanswered questions about the utility, the relative kind of psychological cost to keeping a kid versus not keeping a kid, etc. All that stuff just needs to be well further answered before I render an opinion as a person. I would simply want to answer all these questions that I've listed. So this is my little kind of rambling about abortion. And it seems like a mixed strategy from the point of view of game theory and evolutionary psychology, because we live in a complex environment. We need to use mixed strategies. And it's not a simple thing. And again, the 4 reasons why animals engage in infanticide, so you can keep this in the back of your mind in summary, are for food. I need to eat the infant. Or for kind of conserving resources. I don't have enough, etc., to feed this, so I'll kill it. Parental manipulation, I'm not ready, I can't handle it, etc. And sexual selection, to make yourself look like a more viable mate by not having an infant. All that stuff. And again, in animals, infanticide happens by both females that are responsible for birthing the infant and by males who are either the father of the infant or who are outside males trying to kind of take over that mate, etc. I don't know. It's a complex, messy thing. And I think if we can answer some more questions like, to what degree, for instance, do abortion rates vary by the ratio of available males to females in the United States? That would be good to know. To what degree do abortion rates, vary with, shifts in economy and politics? And then finally, to what extent do women or men advocate for abortion based upon, the 3 prototypical strategies that animals engage in infanticide? It'd be good to know these things, because once we start to know these things, then we can make some more kind of political and moral discussion about how healthy or useful a choice it is. I don't do good with morals, so that's why I've avoided all of that discussion here. So that's just where I'm at. And let's go here to some questions real quick before I turn it off for the day. So Yisrael says, good afternoon, Dr. Lockwood. I hope you're having a good weekend. You too, Yisrael. I'm really glad you're making this video. I'm currently in the middle of writing my high school senior thesis on this topic. Oh, cool. Well, good. Best of luck to you. I'm going to post some references in the caption. If you want to use them, you can use them, some links, etc. I hope they're helpful in some way, shape, or form. This is a tough topic, but, it's worth exploring. I don't think there is a finite, concrete solution. I think there are relative answers depending upon your political and your moral beliefs. If you're more religious, I imagine you're kind of more pro-choice. Pro-life. If you're more secular, if you're more liberal, etc., I imagine you're more pro-choice. For me, I can't say anything personally because I'm not invested. I can't be invested because there's no impact that I have on the debate. I just want to put some questions out there that maybe people will find useful to answer. And if we get some good answers, maybe we can make some more informed decisions about this. Hot button issue. Again, because of our, let's say, our stigma about death, our fear, etc., about death, which is normal. It's not a fun one to talk about. People don't typically want to listen or enjoy this. So yeah. Great, thank you. The evolutionary perspective is really interesting. I'm definitely religious and pro-life, but I'm attempting to take an objective outlook on it. Well, I appreciate that you're attempting to take an objective outlook on it, because it's really easy to get caught up by our religion and just become emotional and not think through it more thoroughly. And that's the one thing I'm really trying to do with all of my YouTube videos, is just try and help us all think through things thoroughly. And a lot of what you see me do here is just try and think through things with you online. That's why I want as much criticism and skepticism as possible from people, because I'm trying to think through this stuff. So there's that. And if, you want to post some more questions, etc., in the comments, I'll see if I can answer them for you. Otherwise, I hope you all are having a good Sunday, despite the fact that it's been a messy week here in the U.S. Again, please, please, please go get The Fear Problem right there on the shelf. Mask Out Books, patricklockwoodhealing.com/books.html. Go get it. Go check it out. Check out my other YouTube videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know if this was useful, or maybe it was a waste of time. Who knows? But let me know. Let me know if this was even thought-provoking, because my goal is to help and to maybe add something to the conversation that's useful, not to be definitive or, cast aspersions on people who believe this or believe that. Like, that's not my game. My game is, well, what else can we consider that might make it easier to navigate through this problem? That's all. So that's that. I hope you all have a great day, and I will catch you all in about a week. And I think I'm going to be part of a new podcast coming up, so keep on the lookout for that. I will be posting updates on my Minds profile. Catch me out on Minds/Dr. Patrick Lockwood, and catch me on Twitter at PsychPLockwood, and we can have some fun chatting. Have a good day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.